Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. You know, it feels a little premature to be doing another one of these TBR takedown videos so soon after my last, but I am determined to get through my physical TBR this year, and that's not going to happen if I don't read the books on my physical TBR. I'm excited about this one. Can I be honest with you? I'm very excited about this one. I have 3 fantasy books on my physical TBR, only 3, and I thought it would be fun to read all of them in this video and to, I wouldn't say contrast them with the last video that I did, but I think to get to indulge in an adult fantasy after reading a YA fantasy series that was kind of mid, I don't know, it just sounds kind of nice. It just sounds kind of nice. So let me tell you the 3 books we're going to be reading. We can get into the vlog. Ooh, I'm excited. Okay, first up, I'm gonna go in order of least fantastical to most fantastical. We've got One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. This is a book that I actually started, I want to say last year after picking it up. It's a signed copy, which is exciting. I didn't get very far in this one before I put it down. That happens to me on occasion. I will pick up a book of my own accord, of my own volition, but I get waylaid or sidetracked by books that I need to read specifically for videos, so I never finished this one, and I'm very curious about it, very curious to see if I enjoy this one as I continue on with it. I didn't have strong feeling about the 100 pages that I did read of this book, but it is, I think, supposed to be a little bit Romeo and Juliet-y, and there's like warring witchy families, and I think it sounds pretty good, so we're gonna read that one. Next up is one that I've heard such mixed things about, and it is Cassandra Clare's Swordcatcher. This book has been, I was gonna say pitched to me as, this book has not been pitched to me as anything. All that I have seen about this book is that it is not as good as Shadowhunters, or it feels like YA, or things like that. I really have not heard a ton of positivity about this book, except for from my friend Natalie over on Instagram. She and I, we don't always align in taste on books. She has really good taste in fanfiction, and do tend to trust her fantasy recommendations specifically, so I thought I would give this a go. I also did get some feedback when I said that I was going to read this book from a couple of my friends who I didn't know had read this and enjoyed it, so maybe it is good. I don't know, we're gonna find out together. Lastly, this is a book that I feel like seems so out of my wheelhouse. It is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. This one I picked up because I was really wanting to get a fantasy book when I was at Barnes & Noble, like last year or early this year. I can't remember exactly when I picked this book up, but I think this one specifically appealed to me because there are female main characters at the helm of this book, and that excites me. I want to enjoy dragons. I'm not a huge Fourth Wing fan. I want to find like my perfect dragon book, and this one has dragons. It has female main characters who get POVs, I believe, in the story, and that was enough to really sell me. So obviously I'm pretty easy to sell books to, I think is really what we're finding here, but this is definitely the one that's most intimidating to me because I have never read anything by this author before. I've read Cassandra, you know, like I know it's an adult fantasy, but like I've read Cassandra, so a little nervy on this one, but we'll do it, you know. All of these are outside of my wheelhouse because they're not romance, but I think if we stick together, I think we can get through this. Well, we're not going to be talking about romance in this specific video. I do actually get to tell you a little bit about romance and or pleasure right now and talk to you about the sponsor of today's video, Lilo, who I am so excited to be working with. Now, maybe it's obvious, maybe it's not. Having a romance channel, I get reached out to quite often by pleasure toy brands. None of those brands have really resonated with me like Lilo has. Lilo to me is the best of the best. When I think of pleasure toy brands, I think Lilo. I love them because they care about pleasure, but it's not just a pleasure toy brand. Like they really care about self-care and experiencing ecstasy without shame, which is so important to me. It's one of like my values here on this channel is sex positivity. Lilo just really embodies that, so I'm so excited to be working with them. They make like really luxurious products that I feel safe and confident using and safe and confident talking to you about. So today I have the Lilo Dot to show you, which probably looks like nothing you've ever seen before. It's a clitoral pinpoint vibrator that can be used on any erogenous zone. The pinpoint shape is super soft and bendable for absolute precision, and the movement of this toy is unlike anything that I have ever used before. It has infinite loop technology, which basically combines a really unique elliptical motion with the super soft bendable tip to give you a stronger orgasm. Usual vibrators have a circular pattern, but this one is elliptical, so the shift of the angle mixed with the soft tip is going to give you a more focused orgasm. The technology behind this is incredible, and it also has 8 pleasure settings, so you can really customize your experience. And like I said, safety is something that's really important to me when it comes to pleasure toys. Like you're using this on intimate areas, you want to ensure that this is not going to bring any harm to you. and Lilo is so good about meeting safety standards. They meet the ISO 3533 international standard, and they have a 10-year quality guarantee on all of their products, so you can feel really safe and comfortable using their toys. Now is the perfect time to check out the Dot and any of Lilo's other products, because they are giving my viewers 10% off, which is stackable, I believe, with the code chandler10. You can also click the link below to explore infinite pleasure with the Dot and dive into a world of exciting sensations with Lilo. Thanks so much to Lilo for sponsoring this portion of today's video. Let's sadly leave the romance and pleasure section of this video, get into the vlog portion of this fantasy reading vlog. So I decided to start with the least fantastical of all of the books, because I just feel like that's very me to start from easiest to maybe most challenging to really stick with in terms of my reading comprehension, shall we say. Because I don't read fantasy as often, sometimes it can be hard to keep all of the characters and magic systems, etc. in place in my brain. This book, however, is pretty easy to stick with, which I appreciate. I am listening to the audiobook, and I don't know if I said this in the intro of the video, but I actually have read first, like, I don't know, 150 pages of this book on my own, but I set it down and I never picked it back up again. So I do remember this book pretty well, and I think that's going to aid in me being able to tell you what it is about. So the book is about two different magical families, and I don't know if this is 100% based on Romeo and Juliet. We've got two families. We've got the Antonovas and the, oh goodness, I cannot remember the name of the other family, so I'm already failing at, remembering things. The Fedorovs. Antonovas, the Fedorovs. Antonovas, there are 7 witchy daughters and 1 cheat matriarch, who we're gonna call Baba Yaga because that's like what they call her in the story. At the very beginning of the story, the eldest of the Antonova sisters goes to the Fedorovs' house, I guess. She ends up seeing these 3 brothers who she's known for quite a while, and she ends up poisoning one of them. You might ask, what the fuck? That's an interesting start to a story, and that's how I felt too when picking this up. The Antonova family, patriarch has died, he has passed away, and Baba Yaga has really taken the reins of this magical intoxicant sort of business. Basically, she's a magical drug dealer, and that's not something that she is supposed to be doing. The governing body of magical New York would not be happy to hear about this, but I think if anyone knows, they kind of like turn a blind eye, like they just try not to think about the fact that they do this. They have always been sort of in competition with the Fedorovs, who mostly deal in magical antiquities. Back in the day, whenever the patriarch of the Antonova family was still around, he was trying to kind of get this business off the ground, the intoxicant business, and he was best friends with the Fedorov patriarch, right? So whenever that guy passes away, Yaga's like, yeah, I'm gonna take this shit over and I'm gonna make it so much better than my husband ever could have. Fedorov dude is like a little pissed because he thought he was gonna like get in on the business. He has offered up his hand in marriage to this woman, and she's like, yeah, no, fuck you, I got this. Me and my daughters, like, we're good at this shit. We're gonna do it. So that's what happens, and the Fedorov guy is never fully satisfied with this, and he lately has been accused of taking the intoxicants, trying to distribute them for a big markup. And of course, being the boss bitch that she is, the Baba Yaga is not super happy with this. And so she asks her daughter to take care of it. And what she does is she approaches Dima. Eldest daughter goes to eldest son and is like, hey, if you're not a lying piece of shit, take this drug. If you're not lying to me about selling our shit for a markup. And he takes the drug and falls into a coma. So that kind of starts our story. It's a story of, two warring families, essentially. The youngest sister and the youngest of the Fedorovs, a chance encounter, and have kind of started flirty texting, I guess. And what I'm assuming is going to happen is that the youngest, what is his name? Lev, and the youngest, Sasha, are going to have to use their relationship with each other against each other. Like, Lev specifically has been instructed to do this. I think Sasha at this point is really keeping her relationship with Lev a secret. I think once it comes out, her mom is going to be like, hey, you need to use this to your advantage and fuck that family up. So far is intriguing. So far, I'm liking it. I really enjoy Olivia Blake's writing. I think she does a really good job at setting a tone, setting a vibe, and it's always a little bit dark and detached, which I really connect with, honestly. Find it a little incongruous at times with the texting in the story. The text between Sasha and Lev feel very normal texts, and everything else in the story doesn't feel very normal. I mean, obviously two warring families like that, I guess, is normal enough, but just the way that she writes, it's not flowery, but it's also not, okay, I would say for comparison, Olivia Blake writes about as different as you can from someone like Natalie Hazelwood, who writes very close to her characters, writes first person, and gives you a lot of I don't know, funny descriptions and shit like that. This is just so different than that, so that may or may not connect with people. I like it, I find it interesting, and I'm already kind of sensing some angst here. I recall correctly, I think there is is sort of like, oh no, not even if I recall correctly, it is kind of spelled out a little bit in here, though we haven't really seen flashbacks yet. There was a relationship between the eldest sister, who I just keep forgetting the name of, mostly because everybody has Russian names and they have like diminutives, which is, hard for me to keep up with. Maria, aka Masha, we're gonna call her Masha. I think Masha and Dima, aka Dmitri, I think they had a relationship back in the day. Though they did. It's not even I think. They did have a relationship back in the day. She had to give it up because of, their warring families. I think she feels like regret about poisoning this guy. Yeah, she's married to a guy who she's like not in love with, which probably doesn't help, but anyway. Juicy family ties, juicy secrets, and I'm intrigued. I want to see where things go. From what I've heard, because I've only read the Atlas 6 by this author, he's not great at sticking landings, so I am curious to see if this book does stick the landing and what that landing might be. Like, is it going to be romantic? I sure hope so, because I really, I need a romantic story. Also, I cracked open to the acknowledgements. Grandma, there's too much sex in the story for you to have liked it, but I hope you see you were a part of it all the same. So, there's definitely romance in here. And also, part of me was second guessing, does this really count as a fantasy book? But hey, on Goodreads, fantasy is the first tag for this book, so I don't know. I'm gonna get farther into this. I feel like I'm babbling at this point, but good start to the video. I have no idea what to say about this book. I finished this actually today, and I was gonna give you a 50% update because I feel like that's normally what I do, 25%, 28%, 50%, 100% update. The thing is, I didn't want to spoil anything in this book, and I don't want to spoil anything for this video. Have I said that yet? I'm not spoiling anything in this video, or at least I'm very much attempting not to. It'll be challenging, I think, when talking about books, not to spoil things, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I think a lot of you think everything is a spoiler. Oh, I'm sorry. I think that plot twists, character deaths, those are plot twists, right? I think detailing a plot point, something that happens in the book, I don't necessarily think that's a spoiler. I'm sorry. I don't. Popular opinion there. But regardless, I'm going to do my best not to spoil things, even to y'all's standards. This book is at times infuriating. It is in part romantic. It is in part not at all a romance. It is both interesting and also deeply boring. I don't know how to articulate my thoughts and feelings about this book. And in fact, I don't know what I would even rate this book. I think because I'm so middle of the road, some things I love, some things I didn't love so much, it would probably end up being a 3-star. But I don't think that's enough to tell you at first glance how I really felt about this book. So many things happen. The middle and end of this book is full of twists and betrayals and new alliances between characters. Found that to be interesting. I was always left guessing who really cared about who, people's intentions were. I often couldn't tell if characters wanted each other dead. So it was a tough read at some points. I will say, get lost at points. Not that this was an overly complex story in terms of the plot or the world building or the magic or anything like that, but it was because of the way this book is written and because of the way that Olivia Blake details characters' emotions, it can be sometimes hard to glean, okay, wait, is this person being facetious? Is this person trying to take advantage of another person? I mean, often that is happening in this book, but there are some times where you just really don't know and you're left guessing. I'm definitely unsure if I enjoyed the ending of this book. I feel like it didn't necessarily have to go down like that. I'm not gonna spoil it. I can't even get into the details about the ending of this book. I just don't know that it had the emotional impact, shall we say, that I wanted it to. I was unhappy that the thing that happened, but at the same time, it didn't really hurt as much as it should have. There was basically a pretty big plot twist at the, I would say 10 to 20% mark of this book I didn't see coming, and it really had an emotional impact on me. And then when similar events unfolded at the end of the book, I was I care less. So that kind of colored my judgment of this book as well. One thing that I was impressed by, I will say, when it comes to the romantic component of this book was my ability to care so deeply about the romantic outcomes and the tragedy romance between one of the Novas and one of the Fedorovs. We don't get to really see background on their relationship, but when we do see that they have loved each other for years and haven't really been able to express that, I was so here for that. I actually really felt strongly, and I was surprised at how little buildup there was, but how much I cared. That was kind of impressive to me. There's another relationship that happens that I was less invested in. I cared less about Sasha and the youngest son, Lev, getting together. And that was the romantic relationship I just didn't care as much about. But anyway, I don't know how to feel about this. Again, I'll probably rate it 3 stars. Will I think about this a lot? Probably not. However, I do think I would think about this again. I do think that this would pop into my head at some point as kind of an interesting Romeo and Juliet story. You know, you definitely have two families who are very much at war. The outcome is not necessarily good nor bad. Would I recommend this book? Am I keeping this book? Would I recommend it? I think yes, if you have read anything by this author before. I don't think this is like the best Olivia Blake to like necessarily start with, but if you know that you like this author's writing, I do think this book is a good time. Am I keeping this book? Yes, I am. It's a signed edition. Look, right there. Barnes & Noble, thank you so much. Signed edition. Could see myself loaning this to a friend because I think I could see this for like a certain type of friend. I have a couple of friends I'm thinking of right now who I would like tell to read this. So interesting. I'm glad that I finally finished it though, let me just say, because I did, put that on pause at one point. Started it, never really finished it. Now we can start in on something else if I can find the book. Okay, I see her. She's thick, she's juicy. She's in fact the longest book we're reading, and yet I decided that I didn't want the audiobook. I might change my mind, we'll see. Swordcatcher by Cassandra Clare. I was going to look and see if the font in this book was the same as in the Shadowhunters books. It does not appear to be so, however. It is a pleasing typeface. That is one of my favorite things about Cassandra Clare's books, which I know is like silly, but I love the font used in those books. This one doesn't seem to be quite as pleasing to the eye. However, it's still pretty nice and it's big, so I do think I can read this with me old eyeballs. So I'm gonna start in on this. We'll be giving you closer updates on this one, I think. And I think there's multiple points of view in this book. I don't know much about it, yet I know there's an orphan, I know it's a woman, that's all I know. So I have been reading Swordcatcher, and I feel like it's taking me forever to get through this. I am approximately 122 pages into this chunker, and can I be honest with you? I fucking love it. And I'm not shocked and I'm not surprised because I love Cassandra Clare's writing. I always have. I don't care that it got uncool at some point to like Cassandra's stuff. I really like her writing, okay? Always connected with it. My most read book of all time is City of Bones, so it kind of isn't that surprising that I am eating this shit up. Wasn't sure what to expect because I'd heard that this book is a little bit slower moving, isn't quite as propulsive as some of her other stuff. It's an adult fantasy debut from Cassandra, and it's got me gripped, okay? I did purchase the audiobook, which I'm actually very pleased with because the audio narrators are phenomenal. If you are familiar with the actor that plays Tom Riddle in the, I think, second movie, he does the narration for the male character in this book. So yeah, I'm pleased with that. This book is about our two main characters, Kel and Lynn. Kel is an orphan who is swept up by the royal family of Castellane, and he is supposed to act as the sword catcher, aka the body double for the young prince Connor. And he's swept up and he's actually asked, hey, do you want to do this? He has to pose as the prince for a night at a dinner, but after the dinner, Connor comes up to him and is like, hey, thanks for doing that for me. Do you want to do this forever? Kel is initially reluctant. He's not entirely sure if this is what he wants to do, but the promise of adventure and the promise of excitement and also a full belly is certainly appealing for a young orphan. So decides he's going to do this. And over the years, they actually kind of like morph to look more and more like each other, which I think is interesting. But now in present day, Kel is, I want to say, in his young 20s. Connor is at the point in his life where he is supposed to be like finding a wife and taking on more responsibilities. Kel has been propositioned by this kind of notorious, I don't want to say villain, but sort of, in the city-state of Castellane. And I think that is really where the story is going to take off. It's kind of why it's taken me so long to not get into the book, but taken so long to update you, because I wanted the synopsis of the book, which is kind of like, the synopsis of the book, in my opinion, kind of lets you know what the first 20% of the book's going to be. I always like to get through that part of the book first before updating you, if that makes sense. Sometimes that's like 10% in, sometimes that's 30% in. So for this book, it's about 100 pages in. Kel goes with Connor, the prince, to a brothel, essentially, a pleasure house, and while he is there, he ends up getting kidnapped. And I say he, Kel ends up getting kidnapped, taken by the rag picker king, who is this like notorious guy, has the city kind of under his thrall. He's a little bit of a gangster, I think, but like kind of feared and respected, whatever. There's a rival in town now, and he is trying to find out how this guy has like come to prominence so quickly, and if he's in leagues with any of the royals or any of the nobility. So he enlists the help of Kel to do this. Kel initially is like, why the fuck would I want to do this? I am body double to the prince. I have a really cushy life. Like, what do I gain from helping you? But Kel, like I said, like he has that sense of adventure that he is seeking, and he was promised that he would get to go to like foreign lands and just get to see the world and have fun. And unfortunately, that just hasn't happened, just because of what it means for Connor to be prince and for Kel to have to be associated with him. Like, he's not actually able to do the things he was promised. And he's not super upset about this, but when he is propositioned by the rag picker king, he's like, okay, maybe I will do this. That is our hero. I say hero. It's not a romance, so I don't feel like I should say hero and heroine. Male protagonist, shall we say. And then our female protagonist, Lynn, is a part of a community of magic wielders. Now, no one really in this society has like true magic, but there is a small population of people, a small race of people, maybe we could say, the Ashkar, who do have what remains of magic in this world. They're both feared and kind of respected, yes, you could say, within this greater society. They live in the walls of a place, I want to say called Salt or Sol or something like that. And Lynn is trying to find a cure for an illness that her best friend has. Lynn was orphaned as a child as well, similar to Kel, but since she is a part of this community who really like takes care of their own, she got to grow up in an orphanage that was very supportive. She kind of had like two mother figures in her life, and she grew up with a girl named Miriam, and Miriam's dying, and Lynn is like, you know what, I've trained to be a physician my entire life just so I can help this girl, my best friend, and it's just not going well. And what I'm assuming is going to happen, and I haven't gotten that far yet, I just didn't want to go too long without updating you. I think is going to happen is that she is also going to get into leagues with the Rag Picker King. He's going to need Lynn's help with something, and like with the promise of, I guess, maybe a cure for her friend. She's going to maybe sign up for that. I'm not entirely sure. I don't know how her and Kel are going to get into leagues with each other, but I'm sure we're going to find out. I am just really into this. I am really into the world that Cassandra Clare is building. It feels a little bit Roman, a little bit Greek, with kind of the city-state vibes going on, the way that the government is kind of set up, the way that there was like an empire at one point that united this like one land, and now they're sort of like disparate governments, and Castellane is like very good at what they do. I think their specific thing is ship harbors. Like they have a bunch of harbors, and like the land to the south is really fertile, and so they provide the crops, and then there's another land that does other things. I mean, obviously there's, you know, a bunch of different lands that do different things, but I like the way that this is set up. I feel like I understand the world, I understand the characters, and I want to know more about the character motivations, right? We've already gotten some like history as well between some characters. There is a lady at court who initially I was kind of turned off by. I can't remember her name. I want to say it's not Ariel, but it's something similar to that. She has like an A name. She used to be friends with Kel and Connor and the guys that they used to hang out with growing up, and she became a lady one day and like stopped hanging out with them. Kel misses her, and he was at one point very embarrassed by her. Like she embarrassed him at kind of a court function, and we don't know what exactly went down. I'm sure we're going to find out, but yeah, there's just so many things that I want to know, and I have not been this enthralled by a book in a long time, and I love that for me, to be honest. It's not super often lately that books really capture my attention, especially fantasy books. Know that there's so many well-done fantasies, there's so many interesting worlds to dive into, but finding your perfect one, I think, can arguably be harder than finding your perfect romance, and that is particularly challenging, so I like this. Honestly, this video so far has been like going very well. I really did enjoy that Olive Blake book, even though it was a little perfect. Like I was still very intrigued, so I'm even more intrigued by. And then what if the John Gwynne book is just like fucking incredible? Are we just gonna like have an incredible reading vlog experience? Is that what's happening? I desperately want to read more of this, and I will update you probably tomorrow, because realistically it's gonna take me a while to get to the 50% mark, and I just want to curl up in bed. So I'll see you tomorrow. Hello friends, it is early in the morning. I just came back from my walk, and if you notice a beautiful line on my forehead, that's from the hat that I wear on my walks. I wear this really sexy gardening hat on my walks. It has a really wide brim to cover my pale ass face, and then I wear big ass sunglasses. This beautiful sexy outfit. Yeah, definitely calling all the boys to the yard. I am like 70-ish% in. I have been listening to the audiobook. I got to listen to this on my walk, and it was delightful and juicy, and so many things are happening. I didn't think I could like this book more, and yet it just keeps getting better and better, and I am so fucking into it. Okay, so I don't want to like spoil the plotline of this book, but I will say that the reasons for the female main character and male main character to get in leagues with the Rag Picker King are getting more complex by the day. Also have Kel and Lynn finally meeting. Essentially, Kel ends up injured, and Lynn is asked back to the castle to help him. The reason that Lynn is asked to the castle in the first place is because her grandfather actually is one of the right-hand people to the king. So she, you know, I guess has a little bit more like trustworthiness and or is trusted to keep her mouth shut. So she goes back to the castle, ends up healing Kel, who is like on the brink of death, and that's kind of how they meet each other for the first time. What's interesting to me is that it's not like the Rag Picker King at this point has asked them to work together, but he has asked them for separate things and has also promised them separate things if they decide to work with him. What I also found compelling is that I don't know if this is a spoiler to say, I don't believe it is. If you are offended by this, I'm so sorry. There is no romantic attraction, I will say, at this point between Lynn and Kel. I actually find that quite refreshing, and the kind of romantic pairings that I am seeing and or the ships that I am pretty sure are going to play out here are not going to be between Lynn and Kel. And I actually really like that. I find that refreshing, and it gives me more opportunity to see, okay, I wonder what these two are going to be to each other. Are they going to be friends? Are they going to be business partners? Like, what's going to happen there? I find that much more interesting, to be honest. And the ships that are kind of being set up, I find to be even better because they are forbidden, you know? Kel and Lynn actually are of similar social standing, even if they like kind of occupy different parts of this world, whereas the pairings here are just not really traditional, and or like they definitely are forbidden. I find that so much more interesting, and I can always count on Cassandra Clare to give us those non-traditional pairings, so like shout out to her for that. I like don't want to spoil this book, but I might have to do a spoiler warning so I can talk about this chapter that just happened, because I am so compelled, and I think this is where things are really going to take off. So I'm gonna put a spoiler warning here, and you can skip ahead if you don't want to hear kind of what is happening and what has got me so interested. So spoilers are going to start right now. The chapter that I just read, we have situation becoming more clear about what is going on with Connor and Kel. So Kel has been sort of compelled potentially to work with the Ragpicker King, or potentially his nemesis, I guess, because he finds out that Connor actually owes this evil man, what's his name, Beck or something, Prosper Beck, owes this man 10,000 crowns, which is a lot of money. Apparently, this man has been buying up his debt across the city, and he has been compelled to do this by some shadowy figure that we don't know. We're assuming it's someone who has it out for the royal family and maybe is part of one of the great houses, one of the kind of merchant families. Connor, again, he owes this sum of money, and he's trying to find a way to pay back Prosper Beck. He doesn't tell Kel about this. Like, Connor has not really shared this information with Kel. He does question him eventually. Kel questions Connor about it, and he doesn't really get into a ton of detail, but he kind of does. He's like, basically, I've just been spending money, and I've like owed money to different people over the years. This is like very common in the society. But again, someone has been buying it up. Prosper has been buying it up, and now is like saying I have to, you know, pay him back really immediately. If not, it would look really bad. Basically, the royal family, it's not that people dislike them per se, but have, I guess, the woes of most royal families where, like, yes, they are seen to spend in excess, and they're definitely detractors of the royal family. So for them to use the royal coffers to pay back this debt would look bad. So Connor's in kind of a bind, and this all kind of comes to a head when at a kind of like state dinner, we find out that Connor does get the 10,000 crowns. He has already paid back this debt, and Kel knows this because he had a meeting with Prosper Beck. This is like first meeting with him, and Prosper's like, oh, I don't even know why you're here really, or like this meeting doesn't really have to happen because like he's already paid back the debt. And Kel's like, how the fuck did he get that money? Like, I'm so curious as to how this happened. We find out at the state dinner that essentially Connor has promised himself to one of the other kingdoms, like he's going to marry the daughter of one of the very wealthy kingdoms, and that's how he got the 10,000 crowns. This is an unfortunate situation though, because his father, the king, had already promised him to a family and to a land that the king used to foster in. So like he used to live in a different country and had really close ties to, I think it's the Malgasi people, but that plan has been kind of fucked because now Connor is engaged to, I believe, the Princess of Sarth. The king is mad. The king is very upset at this. He is mad at his advisor who told him that it was written in the stars Connor would marry this Malgasi girl. He ends up taking it out on Connor and essentially beating him. He doesn't beat him. He assigns his one of his right-hand men, there's two right-hand men, not Lynn's grandfather, but the other one, the one that is like in charge of the army, assigns him to basically beat Connor. And Lynn is called back to the palace, even though she's been banned from the palace, to help Connor. And I'm just so intrigued. I'm so intrigued that, one, they would treat the prince like this because they have not seen any sign that he has been abused growing up. I'm so curious as to why King Marcus like wanted to promise his son to the Malgasi people. Just because he's told it was in the stars? Has he been manipulated? Like, what is going on there? There's so much to unpack. And since we're in the spoiler section, I will say I am so intrigued by the relationship between Connor and Lynn. I find it so unexpected. I don't know why I did not expect that happening, like their connection, but it feels so right. Connor has like never really been told no. He's not super bratty, but like he definitely has the attitude of a prince. And Lynn definitely doesn't give a shit that he's a prince. She knows that she needs to kind of be respectful to him, but at the same time, she has a hard time holding her tongue, and whenever she like wants to go back to the castle to help, she is denied that entry because Connor's like, I don't want to see your fucking face again. He feels like he owes her a debt because she helped Kel, but then whenever Connor offered her payment for that like help, she's like, I don't want your fucking money. Like, this is my job. Like, I help people. I'm a doctor. It's juicy. I like their connection. I find it fun and really love a caretaking moment in a book, and I think that's what we're probably going to get. She's going to help nurse Connor back to health, so I like it. Spoilers over for now. It's exactly what I needed, to be honest. I was like really intimidated by this video. I'm always intimidated by fantasy books. I really enjoy them. It is one of my favorite genres. I just don't pick them up because they're a lot to get into, but I'm already so compelled by this. I went on the Goodreads page for this book, and almost all of the top reviews for this book are from people who have not read this book, from people that were excited that Cassandra Clare was coming out with adult fantasy, but haven't actually picked it up. And I would urge you to pick this up because it's very good. It's very good. It's very intriguing. It's easy to read. I think this would be a good bridge as well if you're someone who has read a lot of YA fantasy or you read romantasy and you would like to get into adult fantasy. I think there's a lot here. Another thing that I am really compelled by is the fantasy elements of this book. It is in some ways kind of reminding me of Brandon Sanderson and his Stormlight Archive series. We haven't really gotten into fantasy parts, but we're getting little inklings that things are going to be interesting, right? We know that Lynn is part of the Ashkar people. We know that these people have the remaining bits of magic. They can create like talismans and do small things for people, but they don't have like grand magic, can't like heal people or, do anything super, super crazy. We are getting in this book like little passages about the larger magic and the history of how there used to be sorcerer kings and shit like that. What I'm gathering and kind of what one of the people in this book is trying to do is bring back that bigger magic and maybe use that for things. And Lynn is being drawn in to potentially try to find some of this big magic. I don't think that's going to be a huge part of this book, but it does have me interested for future volumes and like how that's going to come to play. This book and I think the subsequent book are going to be really focused more on the Ragpicker King and more of like the seedy dealings of this city-state rather than the magic and how that is going to affect the greater world, but I do think that is going to come into play. I'm just genuinely impressed with this. I am so impressed. Oh, hi Pepper Ann. He's like kicking me with his little feet. Hi. Do you need pets? Oh, you beautiful angel. I'm genuinely impressed with the writing. Not that I didn't love the Shadowhunters world. It's one of my favorite worlds. It is one of the YA series I hold closest to my heart for sure, but I didn't know what to expect from an adult book from Cassandra Clare, and I think on its surface you could say, oh, this feels like too similar to maybe some of her other stuff. When you really delve deeper and see the layers here, you can realize this is an adult book. This does have complexity. This has world building that feels a little bit more nuanced, and I'm so curious to see how this continues to unfold. I'm obsessed. I'm literally obsessed with this. I think I'm gonna finish it. I'm gonna finish it, but I'm saying I think I'm only going to update you again after I have finished this book, mostly because I need to get started on that John Gwyn book today, and I need to make myself breakfast, so I want to plug in my AirPods and get her done. You know what I mean? If anything like really wild happens between now and then, I will update you, but okay. I've got great news, bad news, and then I've got good news. Well, good news, bad news sandwich, if you will. First up, let's start with the great news. This is a 5-star fucking book. This is so good. I don't know if I've just been like living under a rock, which like that's probably the case, or if I'm just one of the only people who actually likes this book, but it's just so everything that I want in a fantasy book. I think we've got forbidden romance, we've got fun court politics, we've got a world that I am intrigued by that I haven't really been info dumped to. Wonders never cease. What I find interesting though is that when I was looking at the Goodreads review for this book, someone actually said that they felt like this was info dumpy, so I don't know. Obviously we're all having different reading experiences, but I just really fucking loved this book. The ending was momentous, cliffhangery, and made me want to immediately pick up the next book in the series, and guess what? I fucking did. I did, and I'm not reading it here, but I will probably be reading it over on Patreon, so I will let you know whenever that video is up, whatever, and y'all can go and watch that one, but just everything I want. So it was kind of a bummer to go into a book that is just like not at all what I want, and I think we're gonna talk about that. I could wax poetic about this book more, but like I've talked so much about this one and we need to move on, right? The Shadow of the Gods is what I picked up next, and I didn't really enjoy this, if I'm being honest. And I say didn't enjoy this. I got 20-ish% in and decided, you know what? This is just not me. And it's been a hot fucking second since I've DNF'd a book purely for not enjoying it. I feel like I don't often DNF books and videos, at least lately, just because, you know, there's only like 3 books in a video, and what happens if I DNF? What happens is I actually remembered a book that I own that I haven't read. This is actually the last fantasy book on my TBR that I physically have, and it's this one. Okay, we'll talk about that in just a second. But this book definitely does have female main characters at the center. We've got this, like, I don't know if she's a warrior woman, but at the beginning of the story, this woman is coming back to town, I think, with her husband, and they have come across some dead bodies, people of their same tribe, I guess. And when they're like coming across these dead bodies, their son goes missing or something like that. So I guess it's like her responsibility or her duty or her love for her kid makes her want to like go and find her kid. Then you've also got a dude, don't really know what his intention is, but he ends up getting like beat up. Then there's another character who, to be honest, I couldn't really tell who they were, what their intentions were, etc. The thing about this book is not that it's necessarily bad. You have to be really fucking plugged into the audiobook to understand what the fuck's going on. Didn't care enough to do that, if I'm being honest. I could come up with some like, you know, grand excuse, but just honestly, this just was not gelling with me. Don't think this is a book that I am going to get rid of necessarily. Obviously, the other 2 books, one for my enemy, Swordcatcher, like we're keeping those. I don't think I'm going to part ways with quite yet, especially since I have the audiobook, and I think Hayden would probably enjoy this. It's like if he enjoys it, we like having physical copies of the books that we have enjoyed. I mean, hello, I've got all of this man's books on my shelves, and I technically haven't read them, but not really my TBR, right? This is like some shit Hayden liked. Anyway, keeping this, but DNFing for now. A book I literally forgot that I owned. I don't know what made me think about this book, but I got this for $7 off at Barnes & Noble quite a while ago. The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi. This is fun. I had no idea what to expect going into this. I want to say I saw Mina from Mina Reads read this book and enjoy it, and Mina is a little picky, and so I tend to take her recommendations a little bit more seriously. I want to say she's read this book. I didn't know what to expect. The cover is really fanciful and fun, but yeah, I just had absolutely no idea. So this book is about our character, Amina. She was, I don't know if we'd call her like a pirate necessarily, one of the Indian Ocean's most notorious pirates. She's survived backstabbing rogues, vengeful merchant princes, several husbands, and one actual demon to retire peacefully. So at the beginning of this book, Amina is chilling at her kind of home that she has made for herself and her daughter. She is just vibing. She's just trying to have a good time. She does miss the ocean. She does miss her exploits. She is very happy for the most part in retirement. She is approached by a woman who claims that granddaughter essentially has been kidnapped, and the connection that this older woman has to Amina is that her son used to be a part of Amina's crew. Amina feels some sort of responsibility to go and find her old crew member's daughter. I think this man has passed away at this point, and she's also being promised like $1 million, which I guess in this currency is a lot of money. I mean, not that it's not a lot of money in American dollars, but even more money, I'm assuming, in this time period or whatever. So Amina decides she is going to take on this task. Already, I'm intrigued. I like the way that this book is written. I like that there is grounding in the real world. Definitely real demons, which I find interesting, but there are elements of Islam in here, which I think is pretty cool, and I wasn't really expecting that. I mean, maybe I should have, because I feel like Chakraborty tends to include those details in her books, but I like Amina's character. I think that she is fun and like vivacious and a little bitchy. Feels very grounded in reality. Like all of the decisions that she's making seem to be like logical ones. That's the thing that I sometimes don't love about these like strong-willed female main characters. Like that, I like a strong willed female main character. I think sometimes be a little pig-headed and a little stubborn in ways that frustrate me as a reader, but Amina seems to be pretty smart and pretty with it and like doesn't do shit that pisses me off. And I think part of that is that she is an older character. I don't know exactly her age, but like she has a kid, she's been through a few husbands, she's done some shit in her life, so you know, she's not like probably in her early 20s or something. So yeah, I find that refreshing. I think that's really cool. So far, like, I'm very intrigued. I'm assuming what she's going to do next is like find her crew and ask if they will like come back and do this like one last hurrah with her. It's not a really crazy audiobook experience. I'm trying to remember what they call those when you've got like multiple people and they're like really acting their asses off. I have that, but there are some like asides, I guess, by Amina as she's like kind of reading the story, and I have appreciated that in the audio narration. I think it's fun. So far this is like a fun time, and not that I wasn't expecting to enjoy this book, but because I knew nothing about it, didn't really feel the urge to pick it up. It's probably why I forgot that I owned this book. So I'm glad that I'm finally getting around to it. And honestly, it's gonna be so weird, like not having fantasy on my shelves. I'm looking around, I'm like, is there any fantasy I'm missing? I don't think there is. I think this is it. So let's keep reading. Let's get 50% in and I'll keep you posted. Well, shucks, y'all, we are thriving today. I have curtains in my bedroom and also 50% into this bad boy, and it's still good. It's still good. My hair frizzy because humid walk today. But what to say about this? I don't want to spoil it, but essentially it's exactly what I said that it was going to be. We're adventuring. We are doing things. 50% in, kind of gotten some clues and some hints as to where this girl might have gone. In my mind, she was a young girl. I'm not saying she's not young, but she's not like super young from what I can tell. It seems like she might have run away perhaps with some bad guys. We're trying to kind of figure out she might have gone, and along the way, Amina is also doing some, I don't want to say sleuthing, but she's like trying to meet up with some people that she's like known and to see if she can get their help again, so like they can come on her little adventure with her. And yeah, I mean, it's fun. I've been enjoying the narration a lot. I think it's just a lot of fun. And I'm also enjoying the part of the book that I'm at right now, where we're learning about like one drunken night that she had a long time ago, waking up next to someone and you're like, oh shit, this is scary. Yeah, she's just a fun time gal. I'm just gonna say she's a fun time gal, and it's really fun to read about her exploits. I actually think I might be more invested in her like past dealings rather than like the present day shit that Amina's getting into. I am still relatively invested in like the actual storyline and like actually where things are going. So me and Pepper are having a great time listening to this audiobook together. I just had my nightly yogurt dessert, just had his nightly wet food. We're having a great time. We're having a great time, a great Saturday night. I mean, honestly fun video. And I'm owing that all, I think, to the DNF that I did of The Shadow of the Gods. And I bet a lot of y'all are like quickly typing, bitch, I can't believe you DNF this. It's so good. It's the best book I've ever read. And you know, I bet it probably is. I'm glad that I personally DNF'd it because it just like was not what I needed at the moment. You know, this is the kind of stuff that I need at the moment. Also, I decided what I'm doing for next week's video. I'm very excited about that, you know? Not that fantasy is not fun, but I've been reading a lot of fantasy, reading some thrillers for Patreon, and next week you're gonna be getting a lot of romance, so buckle up. Anyway, I don't have much else to say because spoilers, you know what I mean? Spoilers, but it's a fun time. Don't feel like there is as much to really comment on because it's not that this book is not complex, but you kind of know what you're gonna get, right? Wordcatcher, there's more there. There's like a lot of characterization I wanted to speak on and the politics and the magic. There's not as much of that here, but the magic is fun. Like the magic and the demons, I guess, like that's fun, but yeah, there's not quite as much to comment on, but that is to say that I am still enjoying this. So anyway, I'm gonna finish it. And we're gonna have a fantastic time. Well, friends, I finally finished it. I did. It was good. It was a very good time. I was kind of, I don't want to say surprised at the direction this book went in, but it got even wilder, even more, I don't want to say wacky, but like, yeah, kind of. The fantasy elements of this like really started getting exciting. Binky is clearly very excited. He's running around up on top of my bookshelves. I don't want to spoil what happens in this book, but things kind of head in an interesting direction at around the 50% mark of the book. We do come into contact with the young girl that we're looking for. Things kind of like switch direction from there, which I really liked. Not that it would have been a bad plotline just to find her, but I really liked where we went with the story. I thought it was soul affirming, if you will, in certain regards. And then in other regards, I just really fucking loved, again, like the fantasy elements. I love my cats. I do not know if I'll be able to get out the rest of what I'm trying to say. I wish you could see. Okay, let me see if I can show you. Binky is up there and he is on full zoomy mode trying to play with Pigeon. So, you know, we're having a great time. We're having a great time this Sunday. I'm not sure what else to say about this book. I do like gentlemen that we come into contact with that our main character was married to. Like, very entertaining relationship there. I thought that was really cool. Bad guy was like actually fucking scary, which I also enjoyed. This was just one of those books that you definitely like learn something new from because, you know, there are those elements of culture and religion baked in, but it's also a book that is not super serious and you get to kind of like just enjoy, like just be along for the ride. I liked that. I liked that a lot. Like, this is just the time, and I would be so interested to read the next book in the series because it doesn't, I wouldn't say leave on a cliffhanger, but we know what Amina's next task is. She like is kind of given a task to do for the next book. So very interested to see how that kind of pans out, especially considering that she really wants to spend more time with her daughter. So it's like, is her daughter going to come with her? Is she going to wait a little bit to do the things that she's like kind of contracted to do. I'm not really sure, but I liked the whole cast of characters. I liked the relationships. If you like a good swashbuckling tale, I would really recommend this. It was a really good time. And honestly, I would recommend any of the books in this video. Obviously, I didn't finish The Shadow of the Gods, but I think that that book has like pretty universally like great reviews, and I didn't hate it. I just like wasn't exactly what I was looking for. The Olivia Blake book was like fun in that sort of like self-serious, melodramatic kind of way. Catcher is probably going to be one of my favorite books of the year. And The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi, like, this was also fucking great. Like, I had a great time. I think I'd probably rate that book 4 stars, by the way. So we've got 3-star, a 4-star, and a 5-star. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's a pretty damn successful video. So I'm glad that I got to read all of the fantasy books on my TBR. I had so much fun doing it. So much fun talking to y'all about these books. Thanks so much for watching this, and stay tuned for next week's video where I'm going to be reading, not to spoil it, 10 KU bestsellers, romance specifically. Love y'all so much. I'll see you next time.